She needed to use the bathroom, so she stood up from her bed. But as she opened her eyes, everything around her remained dark. She blinked several times, rubbing her eyes, but nothing changed. Why is everything dark? She whispered to herself, panic rising in her chest. Frightened, she screamed, "Help! I can't see anything!" Her cries. Once upon a time, in a beautiful kingdom called Umoji, nestled in the eastern part of Nigeria, there was a king whose name was Igwe Ezedike. This kingdom was known far and wide for its peace and prosperity. The land was rich and fertile, and the people of Umoji lived in happiness under the wise and kind leadership of their beloved king. Igwe Ezedike was a man with a heart full of love for his people. He was willing to do anything to ensure their well-being, and his people respected and adored him for it. The kingdom flourished, and the people prospered, all thanks to the great leadership of Igwe Ezedike. The king had learned everything about leadership from his father, the late Igwe. His father had ruled the land with wisdom and kindness, setting a great example for his son. My son, always remember, a good king must lead with love, fairness, and strength. His father used to say. Igwe Ezedike never forgot those words. He followed in his father's footsteps, ruling with grace and ensuring the kingdom remained strong and united. But Igwe Ezedike was not ruling alone. By his side was his beautiful and loving wife, Lolo Omasi. The people called her Lolo, which means queen, and she was as kind-hearted as her husband. Lolo Omasi had a gentle spirit, and her love for the people was as deep as the king's. Together, they formed a powerful team that guided Umoji towards greatness. One sunny afternoon, Igwe Ezedike and Lolo Omasi sat in the royal garden, watching the children play in the courtyard. "My dear wife, look at how happy our people are," Igwe Ezedike said with a warm smile. "Yes, my king," Lolo Omasi replied. "Our people are happy because they have a good leader. You are like a father to them, and they love you for it. And you, my queen, are like a mother to them. You care for the young women of this kingdom like they are your own daughters," Igwe Ezedike said proudly. Lolo Omasi smiled softly. "It is my joy to see them grow and prosper. I want them to know they can always come to me for advice and guidance." Indeed, the young women of Umoji looked up to Lolo Omasi as a role model. She taught them the values of kindness, hard work, and humility. Every now and then, the queen would invite the young women to the palace to share stories and lessons about life. One day, a young woman named Ifunanya came to the palace to see Lolo Omasi. "Lolo, I need your advice," Ifunanya said shyly as she stood before the queen. "Come, sit with me," Lolo Omasi said kindly. "Tell me what's on your mind, my dear." Ifunanya sat down and began to speak. "Lolo, I want to be a good wife one day, but I do not know if I have the qualities of a good woman. I see how you care for the people and how you help the less fortunate. How can I learn to be like you?" Lolo Omasi smiled warmly and took Ifunanya's hand. "My dear child, The most important thing is to have a kind heart. A good woman is someone who loves and helps others, just as she would love and care for her own family. You do not have to be perfect, but you must always try to be good, honest, and kind. Ifunanya nodded, feeling comforted by the queen's words. Thank you, Lolo. I will try my best to follow your example. That is all I ask, my dear. Remember, every small act of kindness can make a big difference in someone's life. Lolo Masinachi said with a smile. The people of Umoji admired both the king and the queen, not only for their leadership, but also for their generosity. Igwe Ezedike and Lolo Masinachi made sure that no one in the kingdom was left in need. Whenever there were people without homes, they were brought into the palace and taken care of. The orphans, the less fortunate, always had a place to stay. One day, Igwe Ezedike called a meeting with his council of elders. The elders of Umoji gathered in the great hall, eager to hear what their king had to say. My elders, Igwe Ezedike began, we have been blessed with a prosperous kingdom. Our lands are fertile, and our markets are bustling. But we must not forget those among us who are less fortunate. I want to build a large house, a home for those without shelter. No one in Umoji should sleep on the streets. The elders nodded in agreement. One of the elders, Nze Okeke, stood up and spoke. Your Highness, your wisdom shines like the sun. We will support you in this noble cause. The people of Umoji will always remember your kindness. Thank you, Nze Okeke, Igwe Ezedike said. Let us begin the work immediately. I want the house to be large enough to accommodate all those in need, and we must ensure they are well cared for. The king's words spread quickly throughout the kingdom, and soon the people of Umoji were working together to build the house. The men brought wood and stones, while the women cooked meals for the workers. Even the children helped by carrying small tools and materials. As the house was being built, Igwe Ezedike and Lolo Masinachi continued to lead by example. Every day, they visited the site to encourage the workers and thank them for their hard work. Your kindness will never be forgotten, my king, one of the workers said, wiping the sweat from his brow. You and the queen have given us more than we could ever ask for. We are all part of one big family, Igwe Ezedike replied. When we help each other, we make our kingdom stronger. After several weeks, the house was finally completed. It stood tall and beautiful, ready to welcome anyone who needed shelter. The people of Umoji gathered to celebrate its opening, singing songs of praise for their king and queen. Igwe Ezedike stood before the crowd and spoke. My people, this house belongs to all of us. It is a symbol of our unity and love for one another. Let us continue to work together to make Umoji the greatest kingdom in the land. The crowd cheered loudly, their voices ringing through the air. From that day forward, the people of Umoji continued to live in harmony. Their farmlands produced bountiful harvests, and their markets were always full of traders from far and near. People from other lands came to Umoji to buy and sell goods, amazed by the prosperity and happiness they found in the kingdom. Igwe Ezedike and Lolo Masinachi were loved and respected by all. They ruled with kindness, generosity, and wisdom, always putting their people first. And the people of Umoji, in turn, were loyal and hardworking, grateful for the good fortune they enjoyed under the reign of their beloved king and queen. Everyone in the kingdom spoke highly of them. It was a time of great peace and prosperity, and the name of Umoji became known far and wide as a land where kindness and love reigned supreme. As the kingdom of Umoji continued to flourish and thrive, there was something that weighed heavily on the heart of Igwe Ezedike and his beloved wife, Lolo Mmasinachi. Though they ruled wisely and were loved by the people, there was a deep sadness that lingered behind the smiles they shared with their subjects. The source of this sadness was that after 10 long years of marriage, they had not been blessed with a child of their own. Lolo Mmasinachi felt the weight of this burden more than her husband, while Igwe Ezedike often acted as though the absence of a child did not bother him. Lolo Mmasinachi's heart ached every time she saw a child in the kingdom. She loved children deeply, and the thought of not having her own made her feel incomplete. Many nights, she lay awake in bed, thinking about the empty rooms in the palace that should have been filled with the laughter of a child. One evening, as the sun was setting and casting a warm glow over the kingdom, Lolo Masinachi decided to talk to her husband about her sadness. She found him sitting quietly in the palace courtyard, gazing at the horizon. "My king," she began softly, sitting beside him, "there is something on my heart that I must speak to you about." Igwe Ezedike turned to her with a gentle smile. "What troubles you, my queen?" Lolo Masinachi hesitated for a moment before speaking. "It has been 10 years since we were married, and yet we have not been blessed with a child. I fear that the people are beginning to wonder if Archie has forgotten us." Igwe Ezedike reached out and took her hand in his. "My dear wife, do not let this trouble you. Archie will remember us when the time is right." "But when will that time come?" Lolo Masinachi asked, her voice trembling. "The elders are already whispering about the need for an heir. The people, they expect us to give them a child, someone to continue the royal lineage." Igwe Ezedike sighed and looked into her eyes. "I know, my love, but we must have faith. Archie is wise and does not forget those who are patient. In time, we will be blessed." Though the king's words were meant to comfort her, Lolo Masinachi would not shake the deep sorrow she felt. She knew her husband was trying to remain strong for both of them, but the pain of not having a child was too much to bear at times. Every day, she saw the children of the kingdom running and playing in the street, and it was a constant reminder of what she longed for but did not have. The elders of the council had also begun to notice the absence of an heir. During their meetings with the king, they would sometimes bring up the matter. "Your Majesty," one of the elders said during a council meeting, "the kingdom is flourishing and we are grateful for your leadership, but we cannot ignore the fact that the throne needs an heir. It is a tradition, and the people are beginning to wonder." Igwe Ezedike held up his hand to silence the elder. "I have heard your concerns, but I am waiting on Archie. When the time is right, we will be blessed with a child. Until then, I will not rush or force the hand of fate." The elders exchanged worried glances but said nothing more. They respected their king's decision, but as the years passed, their patience began to wear thin. The thought of not having a royal heir troubled them deeply, and they began to speak more frequently about the matter during council meetings. Meanwhile, Lolo Masinachi found solace in visiting the women of the kingdom who had recently given birth. She would go to their homes with baskets full of gifts, food, clothes, and other necessities for the newborns. She always greeted the new mothers with a warm smile, offering them encouragement and advice on caring for their babies. Lolo, you are too kind, one new mother said as Lolo Masinachi visited her. The gifts you have brought us are more than we could have asked for. It is my joy to see the children of Umoji grow strong and healthy. Lolo Masinachi replied with a smile. May your child bring you happiness and pride. She would hold the babies in her arms, gently rocking them and whispering soft blessings over them. But every time she left one of these visits, her heart felt heavy. As she returned to the palace, the ache in her chest grew deeper and tears would fill her eyes. She would sometimes cry herself to sleep at night, praying and hoping that one day she would hold her own child in her arms. One night, as she lay in bed, she turned to Igwe Ezedike and whispered, My king, perhaps we should go to the shrine and offer a sacrifice to Archie. Maybe that will help us be blessed with a child. Igwe Ezedike sighed and shook his head. We have visited many shrines and spoken to many herbalists. We have done all that we can. Archie will bless us when it is time, my love. But what if Archie has forgotten us? Lolo Masinachi asked, her voice breaking. What if we never have a child? Igwe Ezedike pulled her close and held her tightly. Do not lose hope, my queen. We must continue to believe that our time will come. Lolo Masinachi nodded, but the doubt in her heart remained. They had visited so many places, herbalists, rivers, shrines, but nothing had worked. The kingdom still did not have an heir, and the pressure from the elders grew with each passing day. One day, as the king sat in his chambers, deep in thought, he was interrupted by the sudden arrival of the kingdom seer. The seer was a man of great wisdom, known for his vision and prophecies. He entered the palace unannounced, causing a stir among the guards. Igwe, the seer is here to see you, one of the palace guards said, bowing before the king. Igwe Ezedike was surprised. The seer? What brings him here without notice? The seer stepped forward, his eyes filled with a sense of urgency. Your Majesty, I come with a message from the spirit. Igwe Ezedike stood up, concerned by the seer's serious expression. What is it? What have the spirits revealed? The seer took a deep breath before speaking. Your Majesty, the spirits have spoken. You have 2 months, only 2 months, to take another wife and produce an heir. If you do not, the throne will be lost and the kingdom will fall into chaos. Igwe Ezedike was taken aback by the seer's words. Take another wife? He repeated, his voice filled with confusion. But I love my wife, Lolo Masinachi. I could never hurt her in such a way. The spirits have spoken, Igwe, the seer said solemnly. If you do not act, the consequences will be severe. The kingdom cannot remain without an heir. Igwe Zedike's heart felt heavy with the weight of the decision before him. He loved his wife deeply and did not want to hurt her. But the future of the kingdom was at stake. As he stood there, torn between his love for Lolo Masinachi and his duty to the kingdom, he realized that there was no easy choice. What would he do? Could he bring himself to take another wife? Or would he risk losing everything he had worked so hard to build? The king was confused, and time was running out. Later that evening, The palace was unusually quiet. The air was heavy with an unspoken sadness, and the moon shone brightly in the sky. Igwe Ezedike walked slowly towards Lolo Masinachi's chambers, his heart burdened with the weight of what he had to do. As he approached, he could hear soft sobs coming from inside the room. He hesitated for a moment before gently pushing the door open. There, sitting on her bed, was Lolo Masinachi, her face buried in her hands as she cried. Her heart was heavy with sadness, and the tears flowed freely. She had overheard the conversation between the seer and the king. She knew what was coming. My queen, Igwe Zedike said softly, stepping into the room. Lolo Masinachi looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. My king, she whispered, her voice trembling. I heard everything. Igwe Zedike felt a sharp punch in his heart. He sat down beside her and gently took her hand. I am so sorry, Masinachi. I did not want you to hear it like this. Lolo Masinachi wiped her tears but looked into her husband's eyes. Is it true then? Will you do as the seer has said? Will you take another wife? Igwe Zedike was silent for a moment, unsure of how to answer. He loved Lolo Masinachi deeply, and the thought of hurting her tore him apart. But he was also the king, and the future of the kingdom rested on his shoulders. I love you, Masinachi, he began, his voice soft but firm. You are my heart and my soul, but I have no choice. The kingdom needs an heir, and I must do what is right for our people. Lolo Masinachi's lip quivered, but she nodded slowly. I understand, my king. I always knew this day might come, but it doesn't make it any easier. Igwe Zedike wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. I will never stop loving you, my queen. No matter what happens, you will always be my first love. Nothing will change that. For a long time, they sat there in silence, holding each other. The weight of the decision hung heavy between them, but they both knew it was a decision that had to be made. After some time, Lolo Masinachi spoke again. If this is what must be done, then I will accept it. But promise me one thing, my king. Promise me that no matter what happens, you will always love me. I promise, Igwe Zedike said, his voice thick with emotion. I will love you forever, Masinachi. You have my word. With that, the decision was made. Lolo Masinachi knew her heart would never fully heal, but she had made peace with it. She would remain by her husband's side, no matter what came next. 2 months passed and still, there was no sign of pregnancy from Lolo Masinachi. The elders of the council were growing more restless, and the pressure on the king increased. Eventually, Igwe Ezedike decided that it was time to take another wife. Her name was Ujunwa, and she was known for her beauty. In fact, many people said she was even more beautiful than Lolo Masinachi. But beauty was not what the king was after. He needed an heir. The wedding was a grand affair, and people from all over the kingdom came to witness the marriage of their king to his new queen. Lolo Masinachi attended the ceremony, her heart aching with sadness but her face composed. She welcomed Lolo Ujunwa into the palace with open arms, even though deep inside it pained her. Lolo Ujunwa, welcome to the palace, Lolo Masinachi said with a smile as she greeted the new queen. I hope you find your stay here comfortable. Thank you, Lolo Ujunwa replied, though her tone was cold. She had already made up her mind about Lolo Masinachi. seeing her as a failure who had not been able to give the king an heir. Igwe Ezedike, sensing the tension, quickly gave Ujunwa a stern warning. Lolo Ujunwa, he said, his voice firm, you must never forget that Lolo Mmasinachi is the first queen of this kingdom. I will not tolerate any disrespect or unkindness towards her. If you ever hurt or mistreat her, you will face my wrath. Lolo Ujunwa, though not kind, nodded in agreement. Of course, your majesty, she said. I will respect Lolo Mmasinachi as you wish. But despite her promise, Lolo Ujunwa kept her distance from Lolo Mmasinachi. She wasn't outright cruel, but she also wasn't friendly. She avoided Lolo Mmasinachi whenever possible, and the two rarely spoke. Lolo Mmasinachi, however, welcomed her with a full heart. She showed Ujunwa around the palace, made sure she was comfortable, and even taught her the duties of a queen. Lolo Ujunwa, if you ever need anything, please feel free to ask, Lolo Mmasinachi said one day as she guided her around the palace. We are both queens and we must support one another. But despite Lolo Mmasinachi's kindness, Ujunwa couldn't shake her feelings of superiority. In her eyes, Lolo Mmasinachi was a failure and she saw no need to be close to her. Months passed, but still, Lolo Ujunwa did not conceive. She grew increasingly worried, knowing that her primary duty as queen was to provide an heir for the king. One day, out of frustration, she confronted Lolo Mmasinachi. Lolo Mmasinachi, Ujunwa began, her voice sharp. Why do you think I have not conceived yet? Could it be that our husband is incapable? Lolo Mmasinachi was taken aback by the question. She quickly shut down Ujunwa's harsh words. Do not speak like that, she said firmly. Archie will bless you in time. Just as we all wait for our blessings, you must continue to pray. Ujunwa's face turned red with anger. Pray? She muttered under her breath and she stormed back to her chambers. She was furious, feeling as though Lolo Mmasinachi had insulted her by dismissing her concerns. That night, Ujunwa lay in her bed, fuming with rage. How could she, the second queen, be made to feel like a fool by someone who hadn't even given the king an heir? Months continued to pass, and with no sign of a child, Igwe Ezedike had no choice but to marry another woman. Her name was Obiageri, and she was different from Ujunwa. While Ujunwa was outwardly beautiful and harsh, Lolo Obiageri was quiet and reserved. She didn't like associating with others, preferring to keep to herself. Despite her quiet nature, Obiageri quickly became a target of Ujunwa's jealousy. Ujunwa saw Obiageri as a threat, someone who might win the king's favor and push her aside. Secretly, Ujunwa would try to bully Obiageri, making her feel unwelcome in the palace. But Lolo Mmasinachi, always the peacemaker, did her best to smooth things over. Lolo Ujunwa, we are all queens in this palace, she said gently one day. We must support one another. There is no need for jealousy or competition. Ujunwa glared at Lolo Mmasinachi but said nothing. Deep down, she knew that Lolo Mmasinachi was right, but her jealousy was too strong to be easily overcome. And so, the palace became a place of quiet tension. Lolo Mmasinachi, though sad, continued to do her best to bring peace between the queens, even as they struggled with their own feelings of insecurity and jealousy. As the days passed, everyone continued to wait, hoping that one day the palace would be filled with the laughter of a child. As time passed, The kingdom of Umoji continued to flourish, but something unusual began to happen to Lolo Masinachi. She had always been a lively woman, full of energy and grace, but lately she seemed different. She no longer had her usual appetite for food, often picking at her meals and complaining that nothing tasted right. She slept more than usual and even stopped attending the women's meeting that she was meant to host. This strange behavior worried the king. One morning, as Igwe Ezedike watched Lolo Mmasinachi from the palace courtyard, he noticed how tired she looked. She was lying on a couch under the shade of a tree, her eyes half closed. He decided it was time to call for the palace healer. Something was not right. My queen, you have not been yourself lately, the king said softly as he approached her. I have sent for the healer to come and examine you. I want to make sure you are well. Lolo Masinachi smiled weakly. I am fine, my king. Perhaps I am just a little tired. But Igwe Ezedike was not convinced. You have been tired for many days now. My love, I must know that you are healthy. Within the hour, the palace healer arrived. He was an elderly man with a kind face, known for his wisdom and healing powers. He approached Lolo Mmasinachi with a gentle smile and asked her a few questions about how she was feeling. Then he carefully examined her. After a few moments, the healer stepped back, his eyes wide with surprise. He looked at the king and Lolo Mmasinachi, a smile slowly spreading across his face. My king, my queen, the healer said, his voice filled with joy. I have wonderful news. Lolo Mmasinachi is with a child. She's 6 weeks pregnant. Lolo Mmasinachi gasped, her hand flying in her mouth in shock. Pregnant? She whispered, barely able to believe the words. Igwe Ezedike stood frozen for a moment. Then, a broad smile spread across his face. Pregnant? My queen, you are with a child, he exclaimed, his voice filled with happiness. Tears filled Lolo Mmasinachi's eyes as she reached for her husband's hand. Oh, my king, I cannot believe it. Archie has remembered us. The king embraced her tightly, his heart bursting with joy. Indeed, Archie has remembered us, my love. This is a blessing beyond words. Without wasting any time, Igwe Zedike summoned his council of elders to the palace. As soon as they gathered, he shared the good news with them. My elders, he began, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. Our kingdom has been blessed. Lolo Mmasinachi is with a child. The elders erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the great hall. One of the elders stepped forward, his eyes shining with happiness. Your Majesty, this is indeed wonderful news. The kingdom of Umoji will soon have an heir, and we give thanks to Archie for this blessing. The news spread like wildfire throughout the kingdom, and soon all of Umoji was celebrating. Drums were played, people danced in the street, and the markets were filled with laughter and joy. Everyone was overjoyed that the first queen, Lolo Mmasinachi, was pregnant. However, not everyone shared the same happiness. Lolo Ujunwa, the second queen, heard the news and felt a deep sadness in her heart. Though she pretended to be happy on the outside, inside she was filled with jealousy. She had hoped that she would be the first to give the king an heir, and now that Lolo Mmasinachi was pregnant, she feared being forgotten. Lolo Obiageri, on the other hand, was genuinely happy. She visited Lolo Mmasinachi in her chambers and congratulated her with a warm smile. My dear sister, I am so happy for you, Lolo Obiageri said, sitting beside Lolo Mmasinachi. This is truly a blessing from Archie. Thank you, Lolo Biageri. Lolo Masinachi replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. I am so grateful for this gift. I have waited for so long. The two queens spent hours together, laughing and talking. They often strolled through the palace gardens with their maids, enjoying the peacefulness of the kingdom. Lolo Begeri admired how kind and welcoming Lolo Masinachi was, and the two became close during this special time. Meanwhile, Iwe Ezedike made sure that Lolo Masinachi was well taken care of. He spent most of his free time with her, ensuring she ate well and rested. He would sit with her, holding her hand and whispering sweet words of love and encouragement. My queen, he said one evening, I will make sure that you are cared for in every way. You and our child are my greatest treasures. Lolo Masinachi smiled, filling her heart swell with love. I am so lucky to have you by my side, my king. Thank you for all the love you have shown me. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. Both Lolo Ujunwa and Lolo Obiagiri fell ill at the same time. They complained, and Igwe Ezedike immediately called for the palace healer once again. The healer arrived and carefully examined both queens. After his examination, he turned to the king with a look of surprise and excitement. Your Majesty, the healer announced, I have more good news. Both Lolo Ujunwa and Lolo Begeri are with a child. They are a few weeks pregnant. The king was overjoyed. More children? This is truly a blessing from Archie, he exclaimed. The elders of the council were quick to congratulate the king. Oh, Nwoke Keibu, one of them said, clapping the king on the back. You are a true man, your majesty. Lolo Biageri was thrilled with the news of her pregnancy. She continued to visit Lolo Masinachi often, and the two queens would sit together, laughing and talking about their pregnancies. They would take walks through the kingdom, their maids following behind them, and the people of Umoji would smile and wave as they passed. But Lolo Junwa was not so joyful. She became even more distant and cold. She often yelled at the maids for the smallest mistakes, and she started picking fights with Lolo Obiageri for no reason at all. Her jealousy and bitterness grew with each passing day. One afternoon, as Lolo Junwa paced in her chambers, she muttered to herself, I will be the one who will give the king a son. The seer said so. She repeated this to anyone who would listen, though, in truth, the seer had said no such thing. Lolo Masinachi, always the peacemaker, tried to calm the tension. One day, she approached Lolo Ujunwa gently. My sister, Lolo Masinachi said softly, we are all blessed to be carrying the king's children. Let us support one another through this journey. There is no need for anger. But Lolo Ujunwa snapped back. You may be content with whatever happens, but I know that I am carrying a son. The seer has confirmed it. Lolo Masinachi, sensing that her words would not be heard, simply smiled and walked away. She knew that time would reveal the truth. As the months dragged on, the pregnancies of all three queens progressed, and the people of Umoji could hardly contain their excitement. The kingdom was alive with chatter and speculation about which queen would give birth to a son. Some believed it would be Lolo Masinachi, the first queen, who would bear the heir. Others were convinced that Lolo Junwa would be the one, as she had loudly proclaimed that the seer had foretold her son. Only time will tell, the people of Umoji said to one another, but we will wait and see. And so, the kingdom waited with bated breath for the birth of the royal children that would shape the future of Umoji. One cold morning, just as the sun began to rise over the kingdom of Umoji, a loud piercing scream echoed from Lolo Masinachi's chambers. The sound sent a shock through the entire palace. The maids, who had been quietly preparing for the day, dropped everything and rushed towards her chambers in a panic. Lolo, one of the maids cried as they entered the room. What is happening? Lolo Masinachi, clutching her stomach, winced in pain. It's time. The baby is coming, she gasped, her face covered in sweat. Without a moment's hesitation, the maid summoned the king, and the royal midwives were called to action. Within minutes, the palace was buzzing with activity. The midwives quickly arrived, their hands steady and their faces calm as they prepared for the delivery. Meanwhile, Igwe Zedike was pacing outside the door of Lolo Mmasinachi's chamber, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. His mind raced as he whispered prayers to the Archie, asking for protection and a safe delivery. Please, Archie, protect my wife and the child. Guide them through this, he murmured as he walked back and forth, unable to stay still. In another part of the palace, Lolo Juma was alone in her chamber, her face twisted in a scowl. She had heard the commotion and knew what was happening. Lolo Masinachi was about to give birth, but instead of hoping for the queen's safety or the baby's health, Lolo Juma was consumed by jealousy. It must not be a boy, she muttered angrily to herself. It cannot be. I am the one who should give the king a son, not her. She knelt down, folding her hands together in prayer. But her prayers were selfish and filled with envy. Please, Archie, let it not be a boy. Oh. I must be the one to give the king a son. In contrast, Lolo Degeri was in her own chamber, but her heart was full of genuine concern for Lolo Masinachi. She knelt beside her bed and prayed silently, hoping that her fellow queen would deliver safely. May Archie protect her and the child, Lolo Degeri whispered, her face calm but worried. Let there be no complications. The minutes dragged on, feeling like hours. The sound of Lolo Mmasinachi's painful cries reached Iwe Ezedike's ears, and he could do nothing but continue pacing, praying and hoping. His heart was filled with anxiety, but he trusted the midwives and his chi. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the sharp cry of a baby pierced the air. The sound echoed through the halls of the palace, and Igwe Zedike's face immediately lit up with joy. His heart swelled with relief and happiness. A baby, he whispered to himself, almost in disbelief. The baby is here. Hearing the baby's cry, both Lolo Ujunwa and Lolo Obiageri hurried towards Lolo Mmasinachi's chambers. Lolo Obiageri's face was filled with excitement, while Lolo Ujunwa's face was a mask of forced calm, hiding her inner turmoil. After a few moments, one of the midwives emerged from the chamber, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in soft cloth. Igwe, congratulations, the midwife announced with a bright smile. It's a girl. The king's smile widened, and his heart felt full as he reached out to take the baby from the midwife. He looked down at the tiny princess, her small face so peaceful as she lay in his arms. She's beautiful, Igwe Zedike whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She looks just like her mother. He gazed at his daughter, feeling a deep love for her already. She was his first child, a precious gift from the Archie. As he held her, he couldn't help but feel that everything was going to be all right. The king then entered the chamber where Lolo Mmasinachi lay, exhausted but smiling. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with both joy and a hint of disappointment. My king, she said softly, her voice weak. I am sorry. I couldn't give you a son. Igwe Zedike knelt beside her, gently placing their daughter in her arms. He looked into Lolo Mmasinachi's eyes and shook his head. Do not feel bad, my love, he said tenderly. Archie, has blessed us with this beautiful daughter, and she's more than enough. I do not care about the gender of our child. All I care about is that you are both safe and healthy. Lolo Masinachi's heart swelled with love and relief. She had feared that her husband would be disappointed, but his words reassured her. She smiled down at their daughter, her heart filled with gratitude. Thank you, my king, she whispered. Thank you for your love and understanding. Outside the chamber, Lolo Junwa stood nearby, her face twisted into a mocking smile as she watched the scene unfold. Ha! She muttered under her breath, a girl. Well, that's good for them. She did not share in the joy of the royal family. In fact, she barely visited Lolo Mmasinachi or the new princess. And when she did, she came empty handed, never bringing gifts or showing any real interest in the baby. But Lolo Biagiri, true to her kind nature, was the complete opposite. She visited Lolo Mmasinachi often, bringing gifts and offering to help with the baby. She would sit with the new mother, cooing over the princess and offering words of encouragement. You are such a strong woman, Lolo Masinachi, Lolo Begeri said one afternoon as they sat together in the chamber. Your daughter is a blessing to the kingdom, and I am so happy for you. Lolo Masinachi smiled gratefully. Thank you. Your kindness means so much to me. Days later, the kingdom of Umoji was bustling with excitement as preparations for the princess's naming ceremony began. The grand palace was decorated with bright colors, and the people gathered in the courtyard, eager to celebrate the birth of their new princess. There was dancers, musicians, and magicians performing tricks for the crowds. Tables were laden with food and drink, and laughter filled the air. The king stood proudly, holding his daughter in his arms, surrounded by the elders and his queens. I name her Princess Omasiri, Igwe Ezedike announced, his voice filled with pride. May she grow strong, wise, and kind, just like her mother. The elders stepped forward, offering their blessings for the new princess. May she bring peace and prosperity to the kingdom, one elder said. May she be a light to all of Umoji. The celebrations lasted well into the night, and the people of Umoji rejoiced in the birth of their new royal child. The palace was filled with happiness, and even though Lolo Junwa barely hid her displeasure, everyone else celebrated with joy. Weeks later, Lolo Junwa's time came and she went into labor. After several hours, the royal midwives emerged announcing that she had given birth to a daughter, whom they named Princess Chidimma. Lolo Junwa felt a deep punch of disappointment. She had hoped to give the king a son, but now she too had a daughter. Despite the celebrations held in her honor, she could not shake the feeling of failure. Lolo Begeri's time came soon after, and she too gave birth to a daughter. They named her Princess Sochima. Like Princess Omasiri, the new princesses were celebrated through the kingdom, and the people of Umoji rejoiced in the royal family's blessings. But despite the joy surrounding the birth of the three princesses, Lolo Junwa wanted more. Her jealousy burned deeper than ever, and she could not be content with what she had. She was determined to one day bear the king a son no matter what it took. And so, the palace was filled with both joy and tension as the royal family prepared for what the future would bring. The people of Umoji, meanwhile, continued to wait and watch, wondering what fate had in store for their beloved kingdom. 5 years had passed quickly, and the three royal princesses, Omasiri, Chidimma, and Sochima, had grown into beautiful, lively girls. The palace was often filled with the sounds of their laughter as they played together, ran through the gardens, and explored every corner of their home. Despite their different mothers, the princesses shared a close bond and spent most of their time together. Lolo Junwa, however, was not entirely happy with this arrangement. She didn't like the idea of her daughter, Princess Chidimma, playing too much with the other princesses, especially Princess Omasiri, the firstborn. But because of the king's wishes, she had no choice. Igwe Ezedike wanted his daughters to grow up loving and supporting one another, and Lolo Junwa knew better than to defy him openly. One sunny afternoon, as the princesses played in the courtyard, Lolo Junwa received a visit from her close friend Chisom. The two women sat together in Lolo Junwa's chambers, sipping tea and chatting about palace life. Lolo Junwa tried to keep the conversation light, but the growing sense of dissatisfaction in her heart was becoming harder to ignore. After a while, Chisom leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Ujunwa, I have been meaning to ask you something. Oh. What is it? Lolo Ujunwa replied, curious. Chisom glanced around the room, making sure no one else was listening. Then she asked, do you have any plan to secure the throne for your daughter, Princess Chidimma? Lolo Ujunwa was taken aback by the question. Plan? She repeated, what plan? We couldn't give the king a son. Without a son, the throne will be taken away from us once the king dies. Chisom chuckled softly, shaking her head. Who told you that? Lolo Ujunwa frowned in confusion. Isn't that what everyone knows? If there is no son to inherit the throne, the royal line ends with the king. Chisom's eyes gleamed with mischief, and she leaned in even closer. You don't know the full truth, Ujunwa. If the king has no son, then one of his daughters can secure the throne. She would choose a man to marry, and that man would become the king. Together, they would rule the kingdom. Lolo Ujunwa's mouth fell open in shock. What? I have never heard of that before. Well, now you know, Chisom said with a sly smile. If Princess Chidimma marries the right man, she could become queen and her husband would rule as king. Lolo Ujunwa's mind raced as she processed this new information. She had never considered the possibility of securing the throne through her daughter. But now that the idea had been planted, it began to grow in her mind. She would have to make sure that Chidimma was the one to take the throne. Thank you for telling me this, Chisom, Lolo Ujunwa said, her eyes narrowing with determination. I will do whatever it takes to ensure my daughter becomes queen. Over the next few months, Lolo Ujunwa's desperation grew. She became obsessed with the idea of securing the throne for Princess Chidimma, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. She began to watch Princess Omasiri closely, jealousy burning inside her every time she saw the first princess playing or laughing with the king. Then, one fateful night, everything changed. Princess Omasiri was sleeping peacefully in her chamber when she suddenly awoke with a strange feeling. She needed to use the bathroom, so she stood up from her bed. But as she opened her eyes, everything around her remained dark. She blinked several times, rubbing her eyes, but nothing changed. Why is everything dark? She whispered to herself, panic rising in her chest. Frightened, she screamed, Help! I can't see anything! Her cries echoed through the palace, and within minutes, the maids rushed to her side. The king and the other queens were quickly summoned, and they hurried to Princess Omasiri's chamber. What is it, my child? Igwe Ezedike asked, kneeling beside his daughter's bed. What happened? I can't see, father. Princess Omasiri sobbed. My eyes are open, but everything is dark. I can't see anything. The king's heart pounded in his chest. He turned to the maids. Bring water. Wash her face. The maids quickly brought water and tried to wash Princess Omasiri's face, but nothing worked. The darkness remained. The king was beside himself with worry. Summon the palace healer, Igwe Zedike ordered. We need him here immediately. The palace healer arrived within minutes and examined the princess. He looked deeply into her eyes, but after several long moments, he shook his head, looking troubled. I cannot find anything wrong with her eyes, Your Majesty. The healer said gravely. The gods have not yet spoken to me. I fear this may be beyond my abilities. Please, Lolo Masinachi begged, her voice trembling with fear. Do something. Don't let my daughter lose her sight. The healer bowed his head. I will continue to seek guidance from the gods, Your Majesty, but for now, I cannot see what has caused this. As the night wore on, the atmosphere in the palace became heavy with worry. Lolo Masinachi refused to leave her daughter's side, holding her tight as Princess Omasiri cried in confusion and fear. The king paced the room, his mind filled with prayers, pleading with the Achi to restore his daughter's sight. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Lolo Biageri walked past Lolo Junwa's chambers and overheard laughter. Curious, she approached and found Lolo Ujunwa chatting and laughing with her friend Chisom, as if nothing had happened. Ujunwa, Lolo Biageri called out, her voice sharp with disbelief. How can you sit here laughing when our fellow queen's daughter went blind last night? Shouldn't you be at her side, offering comfort? Lolo Ujunwa sneered, her expression turning cold. Why should I be concerned? She snapped. My child wasn't affected. Or is she? Lolo Biageri's eyes narrowed. Something about Lolo Ujunwa's behavior didn't sit right with her. You are heartless, she said quietly. But remember, everything hidden will one day come to light. Lolo Ujunwa scoffed. Stay out of my business, Obiageri. As the days passed, the king and Lolo Masinachi did everything they could to restore Princess Omasiri's sight. They visited shrines, rivers, and healers in other kingdoms, but nothing worked. Each time they returned to the palace, their hearts grew heavier. They had no choice but to accept the possibility that their daughter might remain blind forever. Back at the palace, Lolo Ujunwa took advantage of the situation, keeping Princess Chidimma away from Princess Omasiri. Don't go near her, she warned her daughter coldly. She's a witch, and her blindness is a curse. They have taken her eyes, and you don't want to be affected. But Princess Sochima, Lolo Biageri's daughter, refused to abandon her sister. She became Princess Omasiri's eyes, guiding her around the palace, holding her hand as they walked together. The two princesses shared a close bond, and Princess Sochima never left her sister's side. Don't worry, Omasiri, Sochima said one day as they sat together in the garden. I will always be here for you. I will tell you everything that is happening, and we'll get through this together, okay? Princess Omasiri smiled, grateful for her sister's kindness. Thank you, Sochi. I don't know what I would do without you. The two sisters spent their days playing and laughing, even though Princess Omasiri couldn't see. Sochima described everything to her, from the flowers blooming in the garden to the birds flying overhead. They became inseparable, their bond stronger than ever. But Princess Chidimma, driven by her mother's jealousy, often tried to cause trouble between the sisters. She would make cruel comments or try to create chaos. But Princess Sochima always stood by her sister, refusing to let Chidimma's words affect them. And so, the palace remained divided while the king and Lolo prayed for their daughter's sight to return. And Lolo Biageri supported them in their grief. Lolo Ujunwa continued to plot, determined to secure the throne for her daughter, no matter the cost. 15 years had passed, and the three princesses, Omasiri, Chidimma, and Sochima, had all grown into beautiful young women. The palace was still filled with the memories of their childhood, but now the weight of royal duties and the expectations of the kingdom began to press down on them. Despite the passing years, one thing remained unchanged. Princess Omasiri was still blind. Though Omasiri's sight had never returned, she had learned to navigate her world with grace and dignity. By her side always was Princess Sochima, her loving sister. Lolo Masinachi and Igwe Ezedike had supported her unwaveringly, ensuring she had everything she needed, while Lolo Obiageri and Sochima remained a constant source of love and companionship. But Lolo Ujunwa and her daughter Princess Chidimma remained cold and distant. They were consumed with ambition, and over the years, Chidimma's jealousy of Omasiri had only grown. Lolo Ujunwa's whispers about securing the throne for her daughter had never stopped, and she had made it clear that Chidimma was her key to power. One afternoon, as Sochima gently guided Princess Omasiri through the palace gardens, Princess Chidimma was lurking nearby, her face filled with disdain. She watched as her sister led the blind princess along the path, talking and laughing softly, as they always did. Jealousy boiled inside her, and she could no longer hold back her anger. Suddenly, Chidimma strode forward and without warning shoved Princess Omasiri hard. The blind princess stumbled and fell to the ground with a gasp. Omasiri! Sochima cried, kneeling to help her sister. Are you all right? Omasiri, still shaking, nodded. I'm fine, she whispered, though her hands trembled as she tried to steady herself. Sochima's eyes flashed with anger as she stood to face Chidimma. Why did you do that? She demanded. She's your sister. Chidimma sneered, crossing her arms. She's no sister of mine. She's nothing but a blind princess, useless and helpless. She will never achieve anything in life, and everyone knows it. Sochima's heart ached for her sister, but she remained calm. How can you be so cruel? She asked, her voice steady. Omasiri may be blind, but she has a kind heart and a strong spirit. That's more than you can say. Chidimma laughed mockingly. Kind heart, strong spirit, none of that matters. What matters is power, and I am going to rule the kingdom of Umoji one day, not her. She pointed at Omasi with disdain. No man would ever want to marry a blind princess. Everyone knows it. Sochima bent down to help Omasiri to her feet, ignoring Chidimma's hateful words. Don't listen to her, Omasiri, she whispered. She's just like her mother, bitter and full of anger. Don't let her get to you. But Omasiri couldn't hide her hurt. She had heard these cruel comments before, but they still stung. Why does she hate me so much? Omasiri asked softly. Because she's jealous. Sochima replied gently. You have something she will never have, a kind heart, and that scares her. The two sisters continued their work, with Sochima holding Omasiri's hand tightly, but deep inside, Sochima was troubled. Chidimma's jealousy was growing more dangerous, and she worried about what her sister might do next. Later that day, Lolo Junwa had another confrontation with the other queens. As usual, she was stirring trouble, picking a fight with Lolo Masinachi and Lolo Biagiri. Very soon, this kingdom will belong to me and my daughter, Lolo Junwa said with a smile, her voice filled with arrogance. You should both start preparing yourselves for when we take control. Lolo Biagiri was quick to respond, her anger flaring. Why must you always speak this way? The kingdom belongs to the people, not just you and Chidimma. Lolo Masinachi, ever the peacemaker, placed a gentle hand on Lolo Biagiri's arm. Leave her, Obiagiri, she said softly. She's not worth the argument. Let her say whatever she wants. Lolo Junwa sneered at them both. You will see soon enough. My daughter will be the queen, and I will be the one to control this kingdom. Days continued to pass in the palace.
With tensions running high, then one tragic morning, everything changed. The king, Igwe Ezedike, one who had always been the pillar of strength for his family and the kingdom, passed away in his sleep. When the news spread through the palace, it hit the royal household like a tidal wave. Lolo Masinachi was devastated. She had been by her husband's side for so many years, and the pain of his passing was unbearable. She wept bitterly, her heart heavy with grief. Princess Omasiri too was overwhelmed by sorrow. She had always been close to her father, and the thought of never seeing him again, never feeling his comforting presence, tore her apart. I never got to see him one last time, Omasiri cried, her tears flowing freely. I never got to say goodbye. Lolo Masinachi held her daughter close, comforting her as best as she could. He loved you more than words can say, Oma, she whispered, and he knew how much you loved him. That's all that matters. The kingdom of Umoji was thrown into deep mourning, and the villagers gathered at the palace to mourn with the royal family. The grief was palpable, and the loss of the king was felt by everyone. Soon, the day came for Igwe Ezedike to be laid to rest. It was a sorrowful day, and the entire kingdom mourned the loss of their great king. But as soon as the king was laid to rest, the matter of the vacant throne became urgent. The elders of the council summoned the queens and their daughters to a meeting. Now that the king has been laid to rest, one of the elders began, we must address the issue of the throne. The kingdom needs a ruler. Tradition dictates that if the king leaves behind daughters, one of them must marry a suitor who will ascend the throne. The princess who marries will become queen, and her husband will rule as king. The room was silent as the queens and princesses listened. Omasiri, as the firstborn, will have 1 month to find a suitor. The elder continued. If she is unable to find a suitable man to marry, Chidimma will have the next month to try. If Chidimma fails, Sochima will have her chance. If after 3 months no suitor has been found for any of the princesses, the mantle of leadership will be taken away from the family, and the kingdom will seek another ruler. Lolo Juma smiled to herself, a plan already forming in her mind. She knew no man would ever want to marry a blind princess. Omasiri would fail, and the throne would fall to her daughter Chidimma. Finally, Lolo Juma thought, Chidimma will be the queen, and I will control the kingdom. After the meeting, Omasiri felt defeated. She had always known that her blindness made her different, but now it felt like a curse more than ever. Who would ever want to marry me? Omasiri said softly to her mother. I can't even see. How can I be a queen? Lolo Masinachi took her daughter's hand and squeezed it gently. Do not lose hope, my child, she said kindly. Archie has always had a plan for you. This is just another test. Do not worry about what others say. We will trust in Archie to guide us. Sochima, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. I don't care about the throne, she said, her voice firm. All I want is to live a peaceful life and marry a good man who loves me. I have no desire for power. Omasiri smiled at her sister's words, grateful for her support, but deep inside, she still felt the weight of the expectation placed upon her. The months ahead seemed like an impossible challenge, and she wasn't sure if she would ever be able to live up to it. As the days passed, the palace was filled with tension. Everyone watched and waited to see what could happen, knowing that the future of the kingdom rested on the shoulders of the three princesses. The first week of Princess Omasiri's allotted time to find a suitor passed quietly. Omasiri, calm and peaceful as always, didn't seem bothered by the ticking clock, unlike her sisters, who may have been nervous or anxious. Omasiri had a deep sense of faith in the future. She believed that if the throne was meant to be hers, then somehow it would happen. And if it wasn't, she would accept whatever her chi decided for her. She didn't spend her days searching for a suitor. Instead, she focused on the things that brought her joy, spending time with her sister, Sochima, and finding comfort in their bond. While Omasiri and Sochima shared quiet moments in the palace gardens, talking and laughing together, the atmosphere in another part of the palace was much darker. Lolo Juwa and her daughter, Princess Chidimma, had been plotting every day. They were obsessed with securing the throne for Chidimma, and they refused to let this opportunity slip through their fingers. One evening, Lolo Juwa and Chidimma sat together in their chambers, whispering in hushed tones. Chidimma, Lolo Juwa said, her eyes gleaming with determination. We cannot leave this to chance. Omasiri's time is running out, and once her turn is over, you must be the next to claim the throne. But how, Nne? Chidimma asked, frowning. No one has come forward for me, but we need to make sure someone powerful agrees to marry me. Lolo Junwa nodded, already thinking ahead. I have been speaking with some of the most well-known men in the kingdom. I even approached wealthy merchants and chiefs, offering them the chance to marry you and become king. Chidimma's eyes widened with excitement. And what did they say? Lolo Junwa's face darkened. They turned down the offer, all of them. What? Chidimma gasped. Why? Lolo Junwa's lips pressed into a thin line. They said you are too much like me. Mean and difficult. Chidimma's face flushed with anger. How they dare? They don't understand, Lolo Junwa said bitterly. They don't see your strength or your power. But don't worry, Chidimma. We won't give up. We will keep trying. And when Omasiri's time is over, we'll make sure you are in the perfect position to take the throne. The final week of Omasiri's turn came quickly. As the days passed, Chidimma and Lolo Junwa grew more confident. Omasiri still hadn't found a suitor, and it seemed like their plan was falling into place. Every night, they would sit together and laugh, making cruel jokes about Omasiri's chances. Omasiri really thinks she can beat the queen. Chidimma snickered. A blind queen? How ridiculous. Lolo Junwa smiled. She doesn't stand a chance. By this time next week, it will be your turn, and then we will show everyone who the real queen should be. But while Chidimma and her mother schemed, Omasiri remained calm. Even though the final week was coming to a close, and she hadn't found a suitor, she didn't lose hope. She believed that whatever was meant to be would be. On the night before the final day, Omasiri had a sudden desire. As she sat with Sochima in their chambers, she turned to her sister and spoke softly. Sochi, could you take me to the village river? Omasiri asked. Sochima looked surprised. The river? At this time of the night? Yes, Omasiri nodded. I want to go there, to touch the water, and talk to the spirit. I feel like I need to. Sochima smiled gently. She understood her sister's need for peace and connection with the spirit. Of course, Oma, I will take you there. The two sisters made their way quietly through the palace and out into the village. The night air was cool, and the moon shone brightly above them as they walked towards the river. When they arrived, Omasiri stood at the water's edge, her hands still tightly grasping Sochima's. Tears streamed down Omasiri's face, and she spoke softly to the river. Mother Spirit, Omasiri whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. I have carried this burden for so long. I have accepted my blindness, but my heart is still heavy. I ask for your guidance. Heal me, if it is your will, and grant me what is rightfully mine, if it is meant to be. The water in the river flowed gently, and for a moment, Sochima noticed that the current seemed to change rhythm, as if it was answering Omasiri's plea. She felt a shiver run down her spine, sensing that the spirit had heard her sister's prayer. After a long moment of silence, Sochima gently led Omasiri back towards the palace. But as they walked through the village, something unusual happened. A large carriage appeared on the road ahead of them, moving through the kingdom. It was an elegant, well decorated carriage, and Omasiri could sense that it was no ordinary traveler. Sochima, Omasiri asked, who are they? Sochima squinted at the carriage as it approached. It looks like the royal family of Omunga, she said. I think it's the second son of King Udeze. As the carriage came to a halt, a man stepped out. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a kind face. He approached the two princesses and greeted them with a bow. Good evening, my ladies, he said politely. I am Prince Osinachi, the second son of King Udeze of Omunga. Sochima smiled warmly. Good evening, your highness. Prince Osinachi looked at Omasiri, his eyes softening. I have been searching for you, he said. Omasiri's heart skipped a beat. Searching for me? She asked, confused. Yes, Prince Osinachi nodded. I have come to your kingdom to find Princess Omasiri. She is my betrothed. Both Omasiri and Sochima were stunned. Your betrothed? Sochima echoed, shocked. How is that possible? Omasiri asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Prince Osinachi smiled gently. I wasn't aware either until a week ago. My father told me that before I was born, your father, Igwe Ezedike, and my father, King Udeze, made a secret arrangement to betroth us. It was a pact between the two kingdoms, meant to strengthen our alliance. My father kept it a secret all these years, but after the death of Igwe Ezedike, he told me about it. Sochima felt a glimmer of hope. So, you have come to marry Oma? Yes, Prince Osinachi said, his smile widening. I was told that now is the time. I'm here to honor my father's words, and I'm very glad to finally meet you, Princess Omasiri. Omasiri's heart swelled with emotion. She had never imagined that something like this could happen, and she wasn't sure what to say. But Sochima smiled brightly. This is a wonderful news, Sochima said warmly. Omasiri is the princess you have been searching for. Princess Omasiri's face lit up. I'm glad to meet you in person, he said to Omasiri, and I look forward to getting to know you better. The three of them returned to the palace together, and when they arrived, Lolo Masinachi greeted them with open arms. She was overjoyed to hear the news, and she welcomed Prince Osinachi into the palace as a honored guest. The prince was given a chamber to rest, and it was agreed that he would officially make his intentions known the next day. When the news reached Lolo Ujunwa and Princess Chidimma, they were furious. They hurried to the prince's chambers, hoping to see for themselves, but the palace guard stopped them at the door. Let us in, Lolo Ujunwa demanded, her voice filled with anger. The prince is resting. The guard replied firmly. He does not wish to be disturbed. Lolo Ujunwa and Chidimma were forced to leave. Sitting with anger and frustration, their plans had been ruined, and now it seemed that Omasiri might actually become queen after all. As Omasiri and Sochima sat together that night, Sochima squeezed her sister's hand. See, Oma, she said softly, the spirit heard your prayers. Everything will work out just as it's meant to. Omasiri smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. Yes, she whispered, I believe it will. The next morning, the sun rose early over the kingdom of Umoji, casting a warm glow on the palace. Prince Osinachi was already awake, preparing himself for the day ahead. He knew this was the day he would meet the council of elders and formally declared his intentions to marry Princess Omasiri. His heart was full of excitement and determination, knowing that he had come not just to marry a princess, but to help restore Omasiri's place as the rightful heir to the throne. Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Sochima woke early as well. She was eager to help her sister get ready for the day. She wanted Omasiri to look her best and feel confident as she met the prince again and introduced him to the elders. Omasiri, Sochima said softly, helping her sister adjust her royal robes. Today is an important day. Are you ready? Omasiri smiled, though there was a hint of nervousness in her expression. I hope I am, Sochi. I don't know what the future holds, but I trust that whatever happens will be for the best. Sochima squeezed her sister's hand. You have always been strong, Oma, and with Prince Osinachi by your side, I know everything will work out. Together, the sisters made their way to greet the prince, but when they arrived at the courtyard, they were met with an unexpected sight. Princess Chidimma was already there, standing in front of Prince Osinachi, speaking to him in a low, persuasive voice. You don't have to settle for Omasiri, Chidimma was saying, her eyes gleaming with ambition. I am the perfect choice. I am beautiful, strong, and I can rule this kingdom with you by my side. Together, we'll be unstoppable. But Prince Osinachi barely gave her a second glance. I am not interested, he said firmly, turning away from her. I have come for Princess Omasiri, and nothing you say will change that. Chidimma's face twisted in frustration. But before she could argue further, the prince spotted Omasiri and Sochima approaching. His expression softened as he walked past Chidimma without another word and greeted Omasiri with a warm smile. Princess Omasiri, he said, bowing slightly. I'm glad to see you again. Omasiri smiled in return, her heart lifting at his kind words. It's good to see you too, Prince Osinachi. The prince looked into her face, his voice gentle but determined. I have come here not only to marry you, but also to help you regain your rightful place as the first child of the late King Ezedike. This kingdom belongs to you, and I want to stand by your side as you reclaim it. Omasiri's smile faltered for a moment, and she lowered her head. I appreciate your help, but what I want most is love, not just a way to secure the throne. I don't want to be a queen simply because it's my right. I want to know that I'm loved for who I am. Prince Osinachi reached out and gently took her hand. Oma, I didn't come here just for the throne. I came because I believe this is our destiny. I have waited for this day for a long time, and I believe Archie brought us together. I don't just want to help you. I love you for who you are. Even when I learned of our betrothal, I knew it was meant to be. Omasiri felt her heart soften at his words. She had always feared that no man would want to marry her because of her blindness. But here was a prince who saw beyond that, someone who truly cared for her. After a moment of silence, Omasiri nodded. Then, let's meet the council of elders. I will introduce you. The two of them walked hand in hand towards the throne room, where the council of elders was already waiting. Lolo Masinachi and Lolo Begiri stood by their side, watching with pride, while Sochima cheered quietly from behind, happy for her sister. But in the shadows, Chidimma and Lolo Jonwa watched helplessly, their faces pale with frustration. They could feel their plans slipping away, but they didn't know what to do next. When the council of elders had gathered, the seer arrived to oversee the proceedings. As the marriage proposal was initiated, the seer stepped forward and spoke to the prince. Prince Osinachi, the seer said, his voice deep and commanding. As part of the sacred union, I ask you to kiss Princess Omasiri's forehead as a sign of your love and commitment. Prince Osinachi nodded and gently kissed Omasiri's forehead, his lips soft against her skin. In that moment, Something extraordinary happened. Omasiri blinked, her eyes fluttering open, and suddenly she began to see. Little by little, the darkness faded, and shapes and colors slowly came into focus. I I can see, Omasiri gasped, rubbing her eyes in disbelief. I can see. The room fell silent as everyone stared at her in shock. Lolo Masinachi and Lolo Bigiri rushed to her side, their eyes wide with amazement. Omasiri, can you see us? Lolo Masinachi asked, tears streaming down her face. Yes, Mama, Omasiri said, her voice trembling with emotion. I can see your face again. Sochima, standing beside her, hugged her tightly. Oma, this is a miracle. Prince Osinachi's face lit up with joy, and even the elders stood stunned, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. It was as if the kiss had broken a spell, and Omasiri's sight had been restored. But before anyone could celebrate further, a sharp cry pierced the air. Everyone turned to see Lolo Junwa running into the throne room, her face pale and panicked. Behind her, Princess Chidimma stumbled in, her eyes wide with fear. I will confess, Lolo Junwa cried. I will confess everything. Lolo Junwa fell to her knees, her hands shaking as tears streamed down her face. It was me, she sobbed. I was the one who made Omasiri blind out of jealousy. I wanted my daughter Chidimma to be the next queen. I couldn't bear the thought of Omasiri taking the throne, so I cursed her. I thought it would give us the advantage, but now I see how wrong I was. The room fell silent as everyone stared in shock. Lolo Masinachi's eyes filled with tears as she held Omasiri close, unable to believe what she was hearing. Even Chidimma stood frozen, her face pale with disbelief. Lolo Junwa continued, her voice filled with regret. The curse was broken because of the prince. He truly loves her, and his love shattered the spell I cast. Please, please forgive me. Omasiri's heart ached as she listened to Lolo's Ujunwa's confession. She had never imagined that someone in her own family would do such a terrible thing to her. Before anyone could respond, Lolo Ujunwa let out a blood-curdling scream, clutching her face. My eyes, she cried. I can't see. I'm going blind. She begged for forgiveness, her hands reaching out towards Omasiri. Please forgive me. I was wrong. I was wrong. But no one spoke. The elders, disgusted by Lolo Junwa's actions, quickly instructed the guards to take her away and lock her up as punishment for her crime. She will face the consequences of her actions. One of the elders said sternly, her blindness is the price she must pay for what she has done. With that, Lolo Junwa was dragged away, leaving the throne room in stunned silence. Omasiri stood still, tears streaming down her face, as she thought about the years of suffering she had endured because of jealousy and greed. The elders then turned to Prince Osinachi and Omasiri, their expression softening. The two of you have been blessed by the spirits, the elders said. We give you our blessings to prepare for your traditional marriage. Omasiri and Prince Osinachi smiled at each other, grateful for the opportunity to start their new life together. Over the next few weeks, they spent time getting to know each other even more deeply. Omasiri traveled with Osinachi to his kingdom, where she was treated with love and respect by his family. Sochima accompanied her sister, always by her side, and Omasiri couldn't help but feel grateful for the bond they shared. The day of the wedding arrived, and it was the happiest day of Omasiri's life. The kingdom of Umoji was filled with joy as the people gathered to celebrate the union of Princess Omasiri and Prince Osinachi. Lolo Masinachi and Lolo Biagiri stood proudly by the side while Sochima beamed with happiness, knowing her sister had found love and peace. After the wedding, Princess Chidimma approached Omasiri, her face filled with guilt. I'm sorry for everything I have done, Chidimma said quietly. I let jealousy take over, and I hurt you. Can you please forgive me? Omasiri looked at her sister with compassion. I forgive you, Chidimma, she said softly. We all make mistakes. I only hope we can move forward in peace. Omasiri then, instructed the guards to release Lolo Ujunwa from her confinement. But when the guards entered the chamber where she had been held, they found her lifeless. Lolo Ujunwa had passed away, consumed by her guilt and her blindness. The news was a sad ending to her tragic story, and the royal family mourned her loss. Weeks later, the coronation ceremony took place, and Prince Osinachi was crowned the new king of Umoji, while Omasiri was crowned the queen. The people celebrated with joy, knowing that their kingdom was now in the hands of a wise and kind-hearted ruler. Omasiri and Osinachi promised to rule their people with love and fairness, ensuring that peace would reign in Umoji for generations to come. As for Sochima, she found the love she had always desired. She married a good man who treated her with kindness and respect, and they too lived happily ever after. And so, the royal family of Umoji lived in peace and harmony, their hearts full of love and hope for the future. This story teaches us that love, kindness, and patience are more powerful than jealousy and anger. Princess Omasiri was kind, even though she couldn't see. She believed that if something was meant for her, it would come at the right time. Her sister Sochima stayed by her side and showed her love and care. Even when others were mean, Omasiri remained good-hearted. And in the end, she got her sight back and became queen. The story shows that being good and kind will always bring good things, and jealousy only brings pain and sadness. Thank you so much for watching this amazing story about Princess Omasiri on African Stories. If you liked it and felt inspired with her journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.